The Mediterranean Sea glistens in a shiny blue. Spectacular islands float in the calm sea. Mountains adorned with beautiful flowers. Verdant forests and lakes of many colors. The graceful nature of Europe has long dazzled visitors from around the world. The Alps are often referred to as the roof of Europe. The Swiss Alps account for the central area of a mountain range, which extends for some 1,200 kilometers. The Swiss Alps are a magnificent World Heritage Site, attracting mountain climbers from all over the world because of their commanding views of icy peaks covered in snow, large icy rivers flowing through valleys, and plateaux full of greenery. The physical splendor of the Alps shows its various faces in each of the seasons, with summer perhaps being the most beautiful. The bases of the mountains are covered in colorful and lovely alpine plants. Edelweiss is the national flower of Switzerland. Called the Stars of the Alps, the word Edelweiss is derived from German, in which it means noble white. Enzian is one of the three beautiful flowers of the Alps. Related to the gentian, Enzian is a tiny wildflower that is only 4 centimeters long. Another famous flower of the Alps is the alpenrose. Related to the rhododendron, it is a red flower which resembles a rose. Alpine plants avoid freezing by being covered in a soft blanket of snow during the winter. After the snows melt in June, their flowers bloom. The mountain train moves up the mountains at 15 kilometers per hour. The tall peaks of the Alps mountains are getting closer. Up above 2,000 meters, the Swiss Alps' 3 highest peaks come into view. The mountain Jungfrau, which has an altitude of 4,158 meters, was given its name, meaning young girl in German, because of its lovely, girlish appearance. Eiger is called the ogre by mountaineers, in reference to its steep walls, which are so steep even snow can't stick to them. This mountain, Munk, which means monk, towers between the feminine Jungfrau and the masculine Eiger. A mountain train slowly climbs higher in altitude, heading toward the midsection of the mountains. This tunnel, seen just before the side of a steep mountain slope, was built by digging through the middle of both Eiger and Monk. It took 16 years to dig the tunnel all the way to the other side. It was finally completed in 1912. After passing through 7 kilometers of tunnel, over 50 minutes, one arrives at Europe's highest train station. Jungfrau Station is located at an altitude of 3,454 meters. The view commanded from near the summit changes constantly. When the clouds dissipate, Jungfrau's Peak looms large. The peak is covered year-round in snow. With an average annual temperature of 9 degrees Celsius, the snow at the peak never melts and is gradually being compressed, turning it into a glacier. Due to its tremendous weight, the glacier begins moving down the mountain. In particularly steep sections, huge cracks in the ice, called crevices, can be seen. The procession of mountain climbers looks very tiny from a distance. They are headed for Europe's longest glacier, Aletsch Glacier. Created from the confluence of several glaciers flowing down the mountains, Aletsch Glacier measures approximately 23 kilometers in length and is 900 meters thick in some parts. The glacier has dark patterns which resemble the tracks of a car's wheels, called moraine. Moraines are debris of rock that are scraped off the mountains as a glacier moves downhill. When glaciers flow into each other, the concentration of moraines also increases. This mountainside was scraped clean by the movement of the glacier. The rock sediments became packed together and gradually became buried within the ice as the glacier moves down from the mountain. The huge glacier is said to be moving at a speed of 10 centimeters up to a meter per day. Beneath the glacier, the ice is melting, forming a limpid stream. Over time, the melted ice from the glacier turns into lakes and rivers. The rivers provide moisture at the base of the mountainside, before finally flowing into the waters of North or Mediterranean seas. The Swiss Alps during the summer. On these bare cliffs, the long history of these alpine mountains has been inscribed. The Alps were created approximately 65 million years ago during the late Triassic period, when the Eurasian continent and Africa collided with each other, causing the uplift of the limestone seabed of the Mediterranean Sea. This massive collision of tectonic plates created huge bends, folding and severing the stratum. Above the newer limestone layer, an older layer of granite is visible. These layers form the folds seen on the faces of Mount Jungfrau and Mount Eiger. Etched within the idyllic and spectacular scenery of the Swiss Alps is the geological history of the Eurasian continent itself. The steep and graceful mountaintops of the Alps nurture the glaciers, which provide the moisture necessary to support this verdant land. Many seaside resorts dot the coast of the deep blue waters of the Mediterranean. One of the most popular is the resort town of Nice, located in the south of France. The water temperature is always over 17 degrees Celsius, allowing the location to have a year-round tourist season. Approximately 180 kilometers southeast off the coast of Nice is the fourth largest island in the Mediterranean Sea. This is Corsica, the island where the French Emperor Napoleon I was born. Corsica is called the mountain in the Mediterranean. The island's long history stretches back to ancient times and has preserved its unique landscape and natural splendors to this day. This is France's only UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site. Due to its year-round mild climate, Corsica has become one of the most popular resorts in the Mediterranean. With a circumference of approximately 373 kilometers and a size almost half that of the Japanese island of Shikoku, Corsica is dominated by 2,000-meter-tall mountains. Except for the plains along the coast, most of the island is occupied by mountains. Corsica's highest mountain, Monte Cinto, is covered in snow year-round and is therefore referred to as the Alps on the sea. It is a popular resort for skiers in the winter. Various old buildings that tell the story of the history of this ancient island can be seen throughout the island. Corsica's history began in prehistoric times. Invasion and occupation has marked the history of this island, which was long part of the tug-of-war between the maritime powers of the Mediterranean, until it finally became a part of France in the 18th century. The buildings on the island showcase its turbulent history. On the northwest coast, there is a large bay with an area of 120 square kilometers that has preserved some of the characteristic features of the Mediterranean Sea and its history, as well as one of Europe's ecological treasures. Beautifully shaped rocks stand in a row above the Gulf of Porto, which cuts back deeply into the land. The adjacent Gulf of Girolata, which has been designated a protected area, abounds in fish and shellfish. To the west, protruding out toward the sea, is the Scandola Peninsula, which has also been designated as a special nature reserve, into which no entry is permitted, either from land or by sea. The Scandola Peninsula is a precious habitat for birds of prey, such as osprey, which are facing extinction throughout Europe. Scandola Natural Reserve, which has an abundance of fish and shellfish, is protected by tall cliffs, making it one of the few safe places of refuge for the osprey, which build their nests on the slopes of mountains and cliffs. The tangled cliffs and uniquely shaped rocks lying in Corsica's northwest are remnants of the island's geological past. Most of Corsica is composed of ancient granite more than 300 million years old. Granite is rock formed from liquid magma that has solidified deep within the earth. Over eons, granite has been forced up here as part of orogenic activity happening as far away as the Alps. Through repeated movements within the Earth's crust, as well as erosion, the island of Corsica rose up in the Mediterranean Sea. This uplift also resulted in the tangle of vertical granite peaks and deeply indented ria coastlines of the island. Traces of erosion have been left in the form of sea caves, which dot the steep hillsides. Sea caves are carved out by rough waves of the sea. This tunnel, which is approximately 15 meters in length, was created in such a manner. Because of the particularly low tides of the Mediterranean Sea, as well as high evaporation due to the mild climate, salinity is thought to be quite high within these caves. The Piana Calanques show particularly dramatic effects of erosion in the Gulf of Porto. These huge, strangely shaped granite boulders stand in formation. They are often referred to as a forest of strange rocks. There are countless small caves in the upper reaches of the rocks where the waves cannot reach. These caves are known as tafoni in the local language. Salt from the waves hitting the cliffs is blown upward, where it weathers the rocks. The intense erosion here is caused by ocean waves and wind. This rock is known as Dog's Head. Eroded over a long period of time, they have taken various forms, like sculptures. Corsica has a dry climate which sees many mountain fires. This has made it a place with few large trees. Instead, growing among the rocks are various shrubs. From long ago, these shrubs have been known as maquis. European chestnuts are very large and are used to make marron glacé. Fruit from the strawberry tree is used to make the sweet arbouze jam. This is erica, a flower belonging to the azalea family. In spring, the island is covered in the sweet smell of trees and flowers. Many of the leaves of the trees and shrubs have oils. When it grows warmer, these oils gradually evaporate, exuding a strong fragrance. While navigating in the Mediterranean Sea, Napoleon I was said to have known he was close to the place of his birth, even in the black of night, just by the smell of the maquis. French novelist Guy de Maupassant described the island of Corsica as a place of forests formed by time and breeze. The beautiful and complicated terrain of the coast of Corsica protects within its embrace one of Europe's most important ecosystems, and has been attracting people for its unique scenery from long ago. The Iberian Peninsula is a land sandwiched between the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. The southwestern part of the peninsula is made up of a vast delta. What seems like an endless plain, this region belongs to the Mediterranean climate zone and has dry summers and wet winters. It is also characterized by an environment unique within Spain, caused by the constant wind that blows in from the Atlantic Ocean. This is the last haven for animals inhabiting the Iberian Peninsula. Doñana National Park, which is located within a delta with an area of 90 square kilometers, is the largest wildlife refuge in Spain. The park supports 3 distinct ecosystems: forest, wetlands, and dunes. Vegetation that can withstand a dry climate is found within the large forest area of the central region of the park. The most common tree in the forest is the pine tree, a conifer capable of taking root even in sandy areas. The bark of the cork oaks, a broadleaf tree indigenous to southern Europe, is used in the production of cork. Plants found growing under the trees, such as heather and rosemary, are herbs. Their thick, tough leaves prevent moisture loss. The forest is the home of various animals, including wild horses. At the top of the forest food chain is the Iberian lynx. While the animal used to be found throughout the entire Iberian Peninsula, it is now in danger of extinction, with only 40 living within the park. The lynx has fine hairs sticking out 5 centimeters from the tops of its ears, which function as antennae, capable of hearing sounds from up to 5 kilometers away. The quantity of a day's meal for the lynx is approximately 600 grams, which is equivalent to 1 rabbit. This time, however, the rabbit proved faster than the lynx. Many wild animals live in this forest, and in addition to the lynx, there are some 30 species of mammals here as well. The wetlands, situated towards the east of the forest area, account for more than half of the park. Located at the halfway point between northern Europe and Africa, the wetlands serve as a stopping place for many kinds of wild birds in migration. The wetlands are composed of tidelands and swamps in the summer, which turn into a shallow lake in the winter, with water temperatures of more than 8 degrees Celsius. This mild environment is home to various species of wild birds throughout the year. Over 500,000 birds of approximately 400 different species make a stop in the wetlands over the course of a year. In early summer, when water levels are low, plants such as grass and reeds grow in great clumps. Within the water, fish lay their eggs, creating an ideal feeding ground for the birds of the delta. Greater flamingos, which can be found in areas around the Mediterranean, eat using their lower bills like a shovel to scoop algae and earthworms from the mud. The great crested grebe is an outstanding swimmer, said to be able to tuck in the plumage on its head when diving for prey. A blue heron is diving for prey in the water. A great variety of heron species can be seen at this time of the year in the wetlands. Areas around cork oak groves close to the wetlands, in particular, are sprawling with wildlife. The wetlands are the largest breeding ground for heron in southern Europe. Numerous birds, such as blue heron and spoonbills, a bird belonging to the ibis family, are making their nests in the large trees. The trees virtually become apartment buildings for the birds. It is not clear why these different species of heron form such large joint colonies, but it is thought that perhaps this is a method for protecting their eggs and chicks from birds of prey, such as kites. The Doñana National Park landscape is fully transformed at different times of the year by the rising and falling water levels, which never completely dry up. On the Atlantic Ocean, the sand dunes within the park change minute by minute. Wind blows ceaselessly from the ocean. The sand dunes, called duna móvil, or moving dunes in Spanish, accounts for 1/5 of the total area of the park. The dunes are said to be moving 6 meters inland a year. Next to the sand dunes, pine trees grow side by side. Sand blown in by the wind gradually covers the pine trees, killing them in the process. The sand washed in from the sea builds up, forming dunes which are then carried upstream of the delta before returning back to sea in the winter, when they are washed away by the winter rains. Over the passage of time, each and every grain of sand has traveled from the sea to the dunes and the wetlands. After the sand has blown away, pine nuts will then grow to form new pine tree groves. The great repetitions of nature can be seen at work up close at Doñana National Park. The delta, located between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, dramatically changes its appearance by the movement of sand and water brought in by the ocean winds. This is the magical world of Doñana National Park. The waters of the Mediterranean Sea are calm and clear. The Republic of Italy is a boot-shaped peninsula projecting into the Mediterranean Sea, and has many islands, both large and small. Small volcanic islands dot the sea about 40 kilometers off the southern tip of the Italian peninsula. The Aeolian Islands, once believed to be the home of the Greek god of the wind, Aeolus, is named after the Italian form of the god's name, Aeolo. There are areas in the sea not far from the islands where intense bubbling can be observed. Volcanic activity has numerous elements, including sulfur gas, being blown up through cracks in the seabed. Around the islands are reefs made of molten lava from past volcanic eruptions. The shiny black rocks are obsidian, created when lava was suddenly cooled down by the water in the sea. Obsidian, like glass, can be broken off into pieces with very sharp edges. It was therefore used to make darts during the Neolithic Age. This area is said to have been an obsidian quarry since ancient times. The Aeolian Islands were created as a result of a series of volcanic eruptions by a group of submerged volcanoes 1.7 million years ago. The volcanic activity continues in this area to this day. Vulcano Island is located at the southern tip of the Aeolian Islands chain. The volcano, which created an enormous crater located in the middle of the island, was the most active volcano in the chain. Volcano Island was created by a huge eruption approximately 120,000 years ago, after which the lava flow of repeated eruptions expanded the surface area of the island by 2.1 square kilometers. Volcano Island was named by the ancient Europeans, who believed that Vulcan, the god of fire, had his furnace there. Eruptions caused by the island's volcano are characterized by huge explosions, in which viscous lava flows out over a large area, and volcanic bombs and lapilli are violently ejected out of the volcano. This pattern of eruption was later termed a Vulcanian eruption, which is one of the terms used to describe volcanic eruptions today. The diameter of the caldera, which was created by a tremendous volcanic eruption, is 500 meters. Its depth reaches as far down as 100 meters. Two ominous craters can be seen at the bottom of the caldera. The white gas spewing out from within the caldera is volcanic gas. Standing on the edge of the crater where the air is thick with sulfur, one can feel the heat of the volcano from the ground beneath one's feet. The temperature around the fumarole is approximately 90 degrees Celsius. The sulfur steam in the gas is cooled by the air and crystallized. The crystallization of sulfur gas, which is thought to resemble a flower, is called flower of sulfur. Volcano Island had continual violent eruptions up until the end of the 19th century. The island's last eruption occurred in 1890. It has been silent since. Stromboli Island is now home to the most active volcano in the Aeolian chain. The island is one of the newer islands to have been created in the chain, having risen up out of the sea approximately 100,000 years ago. Stromboli Island, a tiny island with an area of 1.26 kilometers, has the only continually active volcano in Europe. The crater cannot be approached because it erupts at intervals ranging from several seconds to 15 minutes. The face of the mountain in the northwestern part of the island has been largely eroded away. The eroded valley here is known in the local language as Sierra del Fuoco. meaning the slope of fire. In contrast to Vulcano's eruptions, Stromboli Island's volcanic eruptions are characterized by very fluid lava flows. Due to its less viscous composition, the lava spurts out of the volcano like water from a fountain. It is hardened in the air, falling into the sea in flaming arches. This type of characteristic volcanic eruption is called a Stromboli eruption, and along with the Vulcanian eruption, is a representative model of eruption. This is the large eruption that occurred on Stromboli in April of 2003. This volcano, which has been constantly erupting since ancient times, was thought to be only capable of small-scale eruptions. However, it had an immense amount of accumulated energy built up within it. As the Mediterranean is enveloped in the evening twilight, Stromboli Island is transformed. Instead of looking to the stars above, the ancient European mariners plotted their course using Stromboli's red columns of flames. For this reason, Stromboli Island is called the Lighthouse of the Mediterranean. Every so often, the Aeolian Islands show us a glimpse of the violent energy contained within the Earth. These small islands, which since ancient times have been breeding grounds for active volcanoes, were considered the homes of gods. To this day, they continue to show us both the great severity and majesty of nature. In the mountainous region of Croatia, there is a legend about a queen who prayed so hard to help alleviate the pain of her people who were suffering from a terrible drought that her crying formed lakes of tears. The Republic of Croatia is a mountainous country facing the Mediterranean Sea. The mild Mediterranean climate, along with the cold northeasterly winds in the winter, has long nurtured the country's bountiful forests, located in the mountainous region towards the north. Plitvice Lakes National Park is known as Croatia's Pearls Among Forests because it is a shimmering blue lake located in a valley deep in the mountains of the park. %80 of the 294 square kilometer Plitvice Lakes National Park is covered in forests. The verdant forests are rich in trees, such as beech, firs, and maples. The symbol of the park is the brown bear. European forests were deforested long ago. The few remaining forests are places of refuge for the few surviving brown bears. The bountiful forests nurture many kinds of plant and animal life. The lakes, brimming with water and releasing an emerald green sheen, appear beyond the dense forest. These are the Plitvice Lakes. Plitvice Lakes National Park, with its series of cascading lakes nestled in a valley between the mountains, is believed to have been unknown to people until the 16th or 17th century. In a book dating back to that time, the lakes, suddenly appearing out of the deep, frightening forest, were called the Devil's Garden. The lakes are scattered along the pathway of the river's headwater, which gush down from their source in the mountains before meeting up with the Korana River, some 8 kilometers away. The river rushes approximately 486 meters down the mountain at an incline, starting from an altitude of 636 meters and flowing down to an altitude of 150 meters. Along its path, there are 16 cascading lakes, large and small, connected by some 92 waterfalls. Proschansko Lake lies at the highest altitude, spreading out over 2 kilometers from north to south, with a maximum depth of 37.4 meters. Cascading down from Prostjansko Lake are the other lakes. Cyganovac Lake lies at the second highest elevation. Lake water from Prostjansko Lake is thought to be soaked into the ground at the bottom of the lake, where it then bubbles at the bottom of Cyganovac Lake. Gradinsko Lake is the calmest of the lakes. Many water birds and aquatic animals live in the lakes, which are full of water plants and reeds. At 2.3 kilometers in length and with a depth of up to 46 meters, Kojak Lake is both the largest and deepest of the lakes. Floating in the upper part of the lake is an island which was named after the Austrian Princess Stephanie, or Stefania as she is known in Croatia, who visited the lake in 1888. The lake was long considered to be one of the finest resorts in Europe. How is it that the rivers flowing through this valley turned into lakes? The answer to that question is connected to the geology of the area. The entire area was created approximately 200 million years ago during the Mesozoic era, when the limestone stratum that had been formed at the bottom of the shallow sea was heaved up, as a result of the movement of the Earth's crust. Over time, rain and snow slowly eroded the large deposits of underground limestone. The water finally bubbled out to the surface in two springs within the upper portion of the valley, forming a river. Water containing large amounts of lime produced a deposition called travertine on top of driftwood and fallen leaves. This driftwood and leaves then sink, clogging up the riverbeds. Over thousands of years, these depositions turned into natural banks. The natural banks have stopped the waters of the rivers from flooding over, instead creating these lakes in the process. The levees are said to be increasing in height by 1 centimeter a year. This point marks the end of the Plitvice Lakes area. The quickly moving waters of the Plitvice stream descend from an altitude of some 76 meters. It is as if the waters are boldly bidding goodbye to the lakes. A piece of natural art woven from water and forests over thousands and thousands of years. The landscape here is even now being transformed, at speeds which remain invisible to us. What remain unchanged, however, are surfaces of the lakes that shimmer so beautifully, like a magical legend that is passed down from generation to generation. A vast land stretches from Eastern Europe towards Russia. The sea and the land push up against each other, causing volcanic activity. On the Siberian plateau, we find the rich waters of the world's deepest and oldest lake. The last of Europe's virgin forests reverberate with the voices of wild animals. The magnificence of this great land truly dazzles. The Earth's crust is divided into a number of hard continental and oceanic plates. As the plates slowly shift, moving against each other, they bring about seismic and volcanic activity in areas along the plate boundaries. The Kamchatka Peninsula is located right on the point of contact between the Pacific and Eurasian plates, the two largest plates in existence. Because of this location, the Kamchatka Peninsula is one of the most active volcanic regions in the world. 1,200 kilometers long and 450 kilometers wide, and occupying an area equivalent to that of Japan, there are more than 300 volcanoes located within the peninsula. The city of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, situated about 7,000 kilometers east of Moscow, is the base for traveling to the volcanoes of Kamchatka. The port town of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky was once a flourishing military port town for the Soviet Pacific Fleet. Even today, there are no land routes into the town. The only means of transportation to other cities is by air or sea. The volcanoes which dominate the area can be seen from anywhere within the town. The town is located not 30 kilometers from a volcano which erupted in 2001. The people of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky literally live in the shadow of these volcanoes. The peninsula is covered in lava rock from the many volcanoes that dot the landscape. Tremendous amounts of magma, the source of what brings about volcanic activity, are generated underground. That is not to say that magma, which is created by the collision of tectonic plates, is the immediate cause of volcanic eruptions. Rather, magma bides its time, building up energy some several kilometers under the ground, in a place called the magma chamber. Magma is composed of molten rock and has temperatures that reach as high as 1000 degrees Celsius. This magma causes various types of volcanic activity, from volcanic eruptions to emissions of volcanic gas. Kamchatka Peninsula is said to be one of the most active volcanic regions on Earth, due to its location on the boundary of two great tectonic plates. Because it is so highly active, this area offers a glimpse of several different types of volcanic activity. "120 kilometers north of the town, a gray mountain comes into view. This is the Karymsky volcano. With an altitude of 1,536 meters, it is the most active volcano on the Kamchatka Peninsula. The top of the mountain is buried in volcanic ash, and along its base, the remains of past lava flows are clearly visible. The Karymsky volcano is a cone-shaped composite volcano composed of alternating layers of lava and volcanic ash, which are a result of numerous explosions in the past. The layers are a result of past eruptions, characterized by thick lava flow with low viscosity. Rather than being blown into the sky by the eruption, the molten lava flowed out from the volcano down the mountainside. With every eruption, this mountain has grown in height. Mount Karymsky, which last erupted in 2003, continues growing larger even today. Adjacent to Mount Karymsky is Maly Semyachik volcano, which has an altitude of 1,563 meters. In its crater sits a lake, which has a diameter of about 500 meters. The melted sulfuric acid in the water of this inaccessible lake is evidence of the volcanic activity happening beneath its surface. Gazing at the calm surface of the shining emerald green lake, no one would ever guess what was happening underground. "60 kilometers northeast of Mali Semyachik volcano lies the Valley of the Geysers. Hot steam can be seen escaping the earth in various spots within the valley. At any given time, one or more of the 600 natural large and small springs which dot the valley are erupting. Geysers are hot springs, in which underground water flowing into magma chambers heats up and periodically erupts, throwing hot water and steam into the air. Geysers dot a large area of about 3 kilometers in width and 6 kilometers in length. The scale of the geysers here is said to be second only to that of Yellowstone National Park's geyser system in the United States. In addition to numerous geysers, there is a variety of other volcanic activity that can be seen within the valley, including marshy water from which volcanic gas is emitted, called a mudpot. Next to the Valley of the Geysers is a huge indentation in the Earth's surface, which was created in the center of a volcano. This is the Uzon caldera, with an area of 100 square kilometers and a diameter of 10 kilometers. What was once a volcano, this area, beginning from tens of thousands of years ago, has experienced repeated volcanic eruptions until the volcano itself was blown up, causing the magma chamber to cave in, leaving a great caldera. At the bottom of the caldera, one can see volcanic gas continuing to be emitted and new magma continuing to be generated. In this area, hot springs with temperatures of more than 70 degrees Celsius bubble up. The string-shaped organisms swimming in the water are single-cell bacteria. The bacteria thrive on various substances which are organically decomposed in the hot, acidic spring water, such as ions and gas. Conditions similar to this are thought to have been those that supported the emergence of life on Earth. While greatly changing the environment, at times through eruptions that swallow both land and creatures, volcanic activity also nurtures new forms of life. The rich, untamed nature of this area has long been supported by the rich volcanic soil of the volcanoes of Kamchatka. Volcanic activity has continued unabated throughout the 4.6 billion years that have marked the history of the Earth. The volcanoes of Kamchatka are a great repository of the Earth's volcanoes. This vast landscape, beneath which almost unfathomable amounts of energy are contained, is a sanctuary of volcanoes that humbles all those who come into contact with it. The oldest lake in the world, Lake Baikal, is known as the Blue Eye of Siberia. For over 30 million years, this wondrous lake has nurtured the evolution of life on the planet. Siberia accounts for a great portion of the landmass of the Russian Federation. The southwestern part of central Siberia belongs to the subarctic zone and has great variations in temperature. This region, known as the taiga, is covered in a virgin forest of conifer trees. The word taiga means conifer forest in Russian. Most of the needle-leaf conifers covering the land are Siberian pine and fir trees. Under the taiga, there is a layer of permanently frozen soil called permafrost that is several hundred meters thick and is approximately 20,000 years old. This layer of ice supplies the necessary water for the rich forests. Water bubbling up from the layer of frozen soil beneath the forest floor forms streams and brooks, which then flow into a great lake. Lake Baikal, the world's oldest lake, has an area of 31,500 square kilometers. With extremely clear waters, the lake is also very large. Indeed, the lake is said to contain 1/4 of the world's freshwater reserves. The mysteries surrounding the birth of this ancient lake lie beneath the lake's translucent surface. Ordinarily, lakes are formed when streams or rivers flow into basins between mountains. However, because sand and other sediments also flow into the area along with the water, lakes usually disappear after several thousand years. Lake Baikal, however, formed under very different circumstances, where water filled in great rifts in the Earth's crust that were created by fault movement. Even today, the area of the lake, which is long and thin from north to south, is said to be expanding by 2 centimeters and deepening by 6 millimeters a year. The depth of the lake is 1,643 meters, making it the deepest lake in the world. In these deep waters live creatures that cannot be found in other areas. These creatures, resembling seagrass, are actually freshwater sponges growing closely together at the bottom of the lake. Natural sponges are primitive creatures with a sponge shape that ingest plankton and bacteria through small openings in their bodies. These sponges play an important role in maintaining the purity of the lake's water. Normally, the underwater visibility of a lake is about 10 meters. However, because the waters of Lake Baikal are so clean, underwater visibility extends to more than 40 meters. Small creatures cluster around the sponges. These small shrimp-like gamma-red amphipods also contribute to the cleanliness of the lake by ingesting plankton, as well as mud and lake impurities. These small crustaceans are an important part of the food chain in oceans and rivers all over the world. The gamma-rid amphipods in Lake Baikal are uniquely shaped compared to those found in other locations. The lake has various species whose shapes differ depending upon the species. During mating season, the male amphipod will hold the female in a mating embrace that can last for long periods of time. As many as 259 species of gamma-rid amphipods have been confirmed in Lake Baikal. This number accounts for 1/4 of the world's freshwater gamma-rid amphipods. There are 52 species of fish in the lake, most of which eat the gamma-rid amphipods. More than half of the fish in the lake are Baikal sculpins, one of the creatures representative of the lake. Most of the species of sculpins have no air bladder and are therefore found moving around on the lake bottom. Similar to the lake's gamma-rid amphipod, the sculpins found in Lake Baikal have very unusual bodies. Although both gamma-rid amphipods and sculpins are thought to have been living in the waters of the lake since its formation, originally there were not as many species of these creatures as we find today. In order for the amphipods to protect themselves from the sculpins, and in order for the sculpins to be able to prey on the amphipods, both creatures have migrated from the lake's surface to the bottom of the lake, more than 1,000 meters down. This migration both increased their habitat range and induced speciation. There is one type of sculpin that is capable of moving down to a depth of up to 1,000 meters and maintain a straight course for several meters. There are some 1,334 species of creatures living in the waters of Lake Baikal, and about 900, or about 70% of these species, are endemic to the lake. Far away from the sea in this isolated environment, the creatures have evolved in very unique ways over the course of the lake's 30 million year history. Dominating the lake's food chain is the Baikal seal. This is the only seal species in the world to have adapted itself to fresh water. It is thought that seals, having inhabited the Arctic Sea, migrated upriver approximately 400,000 years ago, gradually adapting themselves to fresh water before settling in Lake Baikal. The seals eat 5 or 6 kilograms of food a day. With its abundance of food, the lake was a suitable place for the seals, which love to eat gammarid amphipod and sculpins. It is said that approximately 70,000 Baikal seals inhabit the lake. Lake Baikal was formed in the center of the Eurasian continent through a unique series of geological events. In this isolated lake, creatures have evolved in many unique ways over a long stretch of time. Because of its unique flora and fauna, the lake is referred to as the Galapagos of Russia. Baikal means rich lake in Tatar, and indeed, it has richly nurtured the many creatures that live within its waters. Until halfway into the Middle Ages, Europe was completely covered in deep, primeval forests. The largest mammal on the European continent, the European bison, or wisent, used to inhabit the vast forests of the continent. Due to deforestation and overhunting, however, the animals became extinct in the wild. The Belovezhskaya Pushcha and Bialowieza forest are the sole remaining primeval forests in Europe. With their rich and abundant ecosystems, these forests nourish the land, serving as its cradle of life. They will perhaps even be capable of reviving the European bison. The Republic of Poland and the Republic of Belarus share a border in Central Europe. A vast flatland stretches around the border between the two countries. The vast forest which precedes these flatlands is Europe's sole surviving fortress of green. Approximately 930 square kilometers in size with a circumference of 120 kilometers, the thick forest is a place where all organisms, even fallen leaves and dead trees, have a role to play, and where all life exists interconnected with one another. While most of the forests in Europe have long disappeared due to deforestation, this particular forest, as fate would have it, was protected as a hunting ground for the Polish royal family during the Middle Ages. Unchanged from ancient times, the old trees tell the story of the thousands of years of this forest's existence. Although it is located at 53 degrees latitude, a location which is further north than Hokkaido, the area, due to its continental climate, has relatively mild weather, with an average temperature of 7 degrees Celsius. In the forest, we find broadleaf trees, such as oakwoods, hornbeams, and lindens, as well as coniferous trees, such as pine trees and spruces, all growing together. The majority of the trees in the forest are well over 200 years old. In fact, quite a few of them are said to be more than 500 years old. The laws of nature apply to the plants as well. Seedlings, which began taking root in the ground, must grow quickly through the large trees in order to be exposed to the sun. For this reason, most of the trees have very straight trunks, growing branches only on the upper portion of their trunks. Woodpeckers live in close harmony with the trees. Various species of endangered woodpeckers live in the forest. A three-toed woodpecker, approximately 22 centimeters in length, uses its lower beak to get a bug in the bark of the tree. During the breeding season, instead of singing, woodpeckers peck on old spruce trees, producing loud noises to attract a mate. Black woodpecker chicks are eagerly awaiting their parents' return. Woodpeckers, which are the same size as crows, are only able to live in primeval forests, as they require trees with very thick trunks to make their nests. Woodpeckers are, therefore, said to be an index assessing the health of a forest. In addition to woodpeckers, more than 200 species of birds live in this forest, their song ringing out between the trees. The forests of Europe were born approximately 8,000 years ago. This forest's ecosystems have not changed for 3,000 years. These trees, which have died of old age, have fallen at the root. such fallen trees play an important role for the regeneration of the forest. Fungi, such as microorganisms and mushrooms, help turn fallen trees into rich soil by breaking them down slowly over a long stretch of time. Mushrooms use their fungal filaments to reach tree cells to provide moisture to the trees in exchange for nutrition, which they extract. Hoof fungus can grow to be as large as over 30 centimeters in diameter. There are said to be approximately 300 species of mushrooms growing in colonies within the forest. A small seedling, 3 centimeters in length, is growing among the mushrooms. Here, a seed implanted on a moss-covered fallen tree is growing, using the tree as its seedbed. This cyclical pattern of usage is called tree regeneration and is applied throughout the forest. Approximately 55 species of mammals, including squirrel, deer, and wild pig, have been confirmed as living in the forest. Wolves stand at the top of the food chain. Wolves, which are highly adaptable, are at one point said to have lived throughout the entire northern hemisphere. However, due to the disappearance of their forest homes, wolves began attacking livestock, and were thereby hunted to the point where they are now in need of being protected from extinction. European bison, having been extinct in the wild, have been reintroduced to the forests. A member of the cattle family, these animals can grow to be 3 meters tall and can be as heavy as 1 ton. Bison are big eaters, eating some 60 kilograms of grass, mushroom, and tree bark a day. Bison clean themselves by rolling around in the sand. This is an important way for the animals to remain healthy, as it gets rid of any insects on their body. In 1919, the last wild bison of this forest was killed, resulting in the extinction of the animal in the wild. In 1929, in an attempt to return them to the wild, 3 bison which had been raised in a zoo were released into the forest. Today, there are approximately 300 bison living peacefully here within the deep forest, far from humans. Through the slow repetitions of nature's cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, the Belovezhskaya Pushcha and Bialowieza forest have grown into rich forests full of life. In addition to nurturing many vulnerable and precious animals, this forest has preserved a piece of Europe's ancient natural wonder to this day. A great bird soars gracefully in the skies above Europe. In order to prevent its extinction, this bird has been designated as an internationally protected species. Dalmatian pelicans inhabit the temperate region that ranges from Central Europe to China. The birds grow to be as large as 170 meters in length, with a wingspan of 3 meters. They have a characteristic orange pouch under their 40-centimeter long beak, which is capable of expanding and contracting. Like a net, fish are scooped up in the pouch, which the pelican quickly devours. The bird's breeding season is between March and May. Wetlands, which are watery areas full of reeds, serve as an important breeding ground for the pelicans. The wetlands, which make up the Srebarna Nature Reserve, are one of the few wetland areas in Europe which are an ideal natural habitat for the Dalmatian pelicans. The Danube River is the second largest river in Europe. Originating in Germany, the river flows through the Republic of Bulgaria, on its way towards emptying into the Black Sea. The area near the shores of the Danube River in Bulgaria experiences the severely cold winters and hot, humid summers associated with the continental climate. Although seemingly mild, the Danube River floods in the snowmelt season or during heavy rains. This flooding has resulted in the formation of lakes and wetlands. Quietly situated near a village 1 kilometer away from the Danube River is a small wetlands area. The Srebarna Nature Reserve, whose name means Lake of Silver in Bulgarian, is 6 square kilometers of paradise for wild birds. At the beginning of spring, this area is transformed with color, as water lilies, wild roses, and poppies grow in full bloom within the wetlands. The reeds, covering some 2/3 of the wetlands, grow to be 4 meters in height. Fish gather around the reeds, as there tend to be plankton growing around them. Turtles and snakes also receive the natural blessings of the wetlands. The reeds growing in large clumps serve at times as nesting places, or as hiding places from predators, or even as resting areas, nurturing all of the creatures that live in the wetlands. In June, the wetlands spring to life. As many as 240 species of birds from Africa and southern Europe stop at the reserve during their annual migration, with half of those species using the wetlands as a breeding ground. The chirping of various baby birds can be heard coming from the reeds. In Europe, the number of pygmy cormorants, a type of cormorant, has been reduced to only 15,000 in number. In days gone by, purple herons used to spread their beautiful wings throughout all of Europe. The Srebarna Nature Reserve is not an overly large wetlands area, but its location is important as a rest stop for large numbers of migrating birds during the winter. The Srebarna Nature Reserve was inscribed on UNESCO's list of World Heritage in Danger in 1992, due to the fact that the water levels in the reserve had become dangerously reduced by a dam that was built on the Danube River. This caused serious concern for the ecosystem of the area. Thanks to the success of various efforts which were made in 2003, the site has since been removed from the list. The Srebarna Nature Reserve has been revived as an important sanctuary for the wild birds of Europe. The Dalmatian pelicans can be found towards the center of the wetlands, within areas that are thick with reeds. Dalmatian pelicans form groups to live in colonies. Reeds, which are both light and strong, make an excellent material for building nests. During the day, adult pelicans can rarely be found in the nests. They are out finding fish to feed their chicks. The chicks, which remain in the nests for 1 to 2 months, have black pouches. Chicks are said to start swimming within about 3 weeks from the time they are born. The parent bird is now returning to the nest. The parent bird is feeding its chick with fish that has already been partially digested in its stomach. The chicks receive the food by sticking their heads right into the parent's beaks. Chicks demand food with a twisting motion of their bodies. In order to feed their chicks, which eat more than 1 kilogram of food a day, parent birds have to travel back and forth between the nest and the fishing place several times a day. It suddenly begins to rain. Parent birds cover their small chicks to prevent them from getting wet from the rain. While adult water birds can secrete oils from between the wings to repel water, chicks, whose wings are still not fully grown, are unable to secrete enough oil. The older chicks, whose feathers are more or less developed, don't move at all. They are waiting out the rain. These are eggs which were exposed to the rain. Although Dalmatian pelicans produce 1 or 2 eggs at a time, not all of them hatch. It has been 2 months since the birth of these chicks. When chicks have achieved a weight of over 10 kilograms, they begin practicing to fly. Then, at the beginning of August, they all begin their migration down south, to places such as Greece and Turkey. The great clumps of reeds in the Srebarna Nature Reserve serve as an important habitat for many rare species of birds. These rich wetlands, created by the mighty Danube River, are one of a few places of refuge for the wild birds of Europe. The Republic of Hungary and the Slovak Republic share a border in Central Europe. Unique in Europe, the eastern part of the border has a mild climate with 4 distinct seasons. The area's unique climate is due to its being surrounded by a chain of low mountains. Verdant scenery extends throughout the hills and valleys. The white rock, visible against the green countryside, is limestone, which is a rock formed from coral and seashell sedimentation. This area is a large karst plateau, which was formed 230 million years ago at the bottom of the sea. It was then thrust up some 60 million years ago due to the movement of the Earth's crust. Limestone is easily eroded when it comes into contact with acidic water, resulting in the formation of karst landscapes with many caves. There are 712 confirmed caves on this great plateau, which covers an area of 550 square kilometers and has a circumference of 95 kilometers. Surrounded on all 4 sides by mountains, the plateau also has abundant quantities of water. Straddling the 2 countries are the caves of Agtelek Karst and Slovak Karst. The caves, which were discovered one after the other, starting in the late 17th century, are multifaceted works of natural art that were created by various chance factors, which include climate, topology, and various other geological conditions. Passing through the narrow entrance of a cave, not usually open to the public, a large stalactite formation suddenly comes into view. This comparatively small cave is full of stalactite formations. The stalagmites were slowly formed over time by water, with calcite deposits dripping from the rocks. It is said that these formations take some 100 years to grow 1 centimeter in length. The world's largest stalactite formation, 40 meters tall and boasting a diameter of more than 5 meters, was formed in this cave. The formation took several hundreds of thousands of years to complete. Entering through a side entrance of the cave, white icicles fully cover the ceiling. These tall, thin icicles are also stalactites. Water drips down from the tip of a stalactite formation, which is 5 millimeters in diameter. The water bubbling up from the rock stratum flows down this stalactite tube. The stalactite tube, called a straw, is formed by trickling calcite-laden water building up on the outer part of the formation, thereby extending it further and further down over time. The thickness of the film of the calcite-laden water is only about 1 millimeter. Therefore, even the slightest movement of air would break the fragile formations. However, this cave is a closed, totally windless chamber, and therefore we may find long straws, one of which measures some 3 meters in length. These unusually long straws are the result of various factors, which have occurred here simultaneously. This cave was discovered in 1954, in the midst of marble excavating activities. Inside the cave, in addition to marble, they also discovered within the bedrock stalactite formations so beautiful that they seem man-made. Brilliant white stalactites stand out here and there against the bedrock. Aragonite, which is a type of stalactite, is quite different from stalagmites and straw. As if defying gravity, aragonite forms sideways or upwards. It sometimes forms into shapes resembling ice crystals. The way aragonite forms has overturned our conventional notions about stalactites. Resembling stalactite, a huge aragonite formation of over 40 centimeters in length hangs from the ceiling. Even more than stalactite, it resembles an exquisite jewel. Although the mechanism behind the formation of such stalactites remains unclear, it is known that they are composed of calcium carbonate crystal, the mineral which makes up limestone. This small 300-meter-long cave has the largest amount of aragonite formations on Earth. Many unanswered questions concerning these caves remain for the geologists of the future. What is beyond doubt is that these aragonite formations are the most beautiful stalactites found up to this day. At the northern edge of the karst plateau, there exists a cave of ice that has an interior climate quite unlike that of the mild one outside. This is an ice cave. The cool and spacious cave interior is like a fantastic palace of ice, and light reflecting on the ice crystals shimmers in the cave. The layers of ice in this 70-meter deep cave were formed 120,000 years ago. The cave has an average temperature of -1 degree Celsius. Water seeping from the Earth's surface in the summer, as well as any moisture in the air, is instantly frozen amidst temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius in the winter caves. As this is repeated year after year, the ice stratum is growing thicker over thousands and thousands of years. The thickness of the ice covering the inside of the cave measures a maximum of 26.5 meters, which is equivalent to that of an 8-story building. This world of ice simply cannot be imagined from the scenery of Earth's surface above. The ice cave is said to be the oldest one on Earth, and is also the cave containing the greatest amount of ice in the world. The history of these caves began when land that was once under the sea was heaved up due to movement of the Earth's crust. The mild climate of the area, surrounded by mountains with an abundance of water, then helped create these wondrous caves. The caves of Aktelek Karst and Slovak Karst are sometimes described as a museum of caves. While their appearance changes slowly over time, they have, to this day, preserved the history of the various forces which together have contributed to their creation.